Welcome. I'm Leslie Canham.
I'm Mary Gavoni.
I'm Linda Harvey.
I'm Olivia Wan, and together we are the Compliance Divas. Welcome to the Compliance Divas podcast. My name is Olivia Wan, and I'll be your moderator today. In today's episode, we're talking about the status of Change Healthcare data breach and notification requirements. As the Compliance Divas, we bring clarity and simplicity to compliance by navigating regulatory compliance to keep you on course. Please subscribe to the Compliance Divas podcast through your favorite podcast channel or visit our website, thecompliancedivas.com. Any resources that we mention during the podcast can be found on our website. Please submit your questions to support@thecompliancedivas.com and don't forget to give us a like. So as you're aware, Change Healthcare experienced a cyber attack earlier this year. And if you don't already know, Change Healthcare is actually owned by United Health Group. And Change Healthcare manages healthcare technology connected to processing insurance claims and billing. And this includes the popular ones such as Dentrex, PracticeWorks, EagleSoft, SoftDent, Open Dental, and many more companies. So they basically serve as the business associate to your dental practice. So it would be helpful to review your business associate agreements that you have in place. And so the Office of Civil Rights enforces the HIPAA privacy, security, and breach notification rules, which triggers notification of this breach, as we're talking about in this example. So I wanted to talk with Mary about what are they supposed to do?
Thanks, Olivia. Many dental practices are not aware that there are notification requirements if there has been a breach, either directly in their practice or as what happened through Change Healthcare. So there's 3 types of notifications that need to be performed in the case of a breach of protected health information. The first is individual notice. So that means contacting individual patients, or maybe it is an individual family, to let them know that their information has been breached. Covered entities have to provide this notice in written format, first-class mail, or they could do it by email if the affected individual has agreed to receive notices electronically. So if you don't have an agreement from your patients that they can receive notices from you through email, then you have to send this out through the snail mail to your patients. This needs to be done as soon as possible after it's discovered, or at least within 60 days from the time of discovery. But if your state has specific requirements for breach notification, and about a handful of states do, then you have to follow their timeline, and it may be a shorter timeline for notifying individuals. The next notification is a media notification. If there are more than 500 individuals in a state or a particular jurisdiction, then you need to send essentially a press release or a notification that they can broadcast in popular media. So a local TV station or a local newspaper, which isn't exactly the best marketing for your practice, but you need to make those notifications. And then the final notification in case of a breach is to the Department of Health and Human Services. And that, again, must be done as soon as possible after the discovery, or no later than 60 days if it's 500 or more individuals. If it's fewer than 500 individuals, then you don't have to do it until 60 days after the end of the year in which the breach occurred. So I would guess most practices, and Olivia, Leslie, you can weigh in on this, I would guess most of them would fall in that 500 individuals category, whether it's an individual patient or a family. And so they're going to have to do that within that 60-day time frame.
Yeah, so that's a lot of information to mentally digest. So thanks for pointing out about the 60 days from discovery on a federal level. Check with the state because they have different timelines that may be much shorter than 60 days, notifying the Department of Health and Human Services and media outlets. So a lot goes into it, Mary, as you pointed out. And I wanted to mention that the business associate agreement, think of it as a contract. And so these dental offices that have been collecting business associate agreements, inside of that agreement, it spells out, what happens if there's a breach. And so it's important to review these agreements. But what we understand at this time right now is that the dental office can delegate to Change Healthcare the task of providing HIPAA breach notification. And that's great because this is so expensive to do this process. And if Change Healthcare performs the required breach notifications and it's consistent with what the law requires, then the dental office wouldn't have any reporting. So considering that, Leslie, what are dental offices waiting on at this point?
Well, Olivia, recently the associate director at Optum, Shelley Violette, was contacted and she indicated that they are conducting an investigation and there is no final incident report available at this time. So as you can imagine, there are many different parts of an investigation to determine what information was accessed and to what extent it was accessed and how an individual might be harmed from that. So at this time, to ease the reporting obligations on stakeholders whose data may have been compromised as part of this cyber attack, United Health Group has offered to make the notifications and undertake related administrative requirements on behalf of any customer. Now, Ms. Violate also further indicated that they would do the appropriate notifications in the most efficient way possible as required by law. And this would include some form of direct mail or website notification, as well as other notices required by HIPAA and applicable state laws. And she hopes to provide additional information very soon on an opt-out process to ease the burden on dental practices. And I think that's really where a lot of folks come to us, Olivia, is they want to know what is it that we need to do as the dental practice to notify our patients and ongoing, just like we see on the TV shows, can't say anything because it's an ongoing investigation.
Thanks, Leslie, for all that information. So the only thing we know to do is to stay current with the Department of Health and Human Services information that they're providing. And it is interesting that, Change Healthcare has not provided breach notification to the department concerning this breach. So we're interested to see how all of this plays out and concerned. And I can tell you this, if you don't already have cyber insurance, you better get it, because we look at how vulnerable data is and how expensive it is to address these issues. And so we want to stay on top of it, make sure you got your business associate agreements in place, and stay tuned with our podcast. We'll keep you up to date as the information comes down the pipeline.
And as an additional point of information for our listeners, on June 25th, Change Healthcare announced that they will be doing breach notification to the affected stakeholders in July. So you should be receiving some information, as we talked about before, the opt-out. In other words, that you would leave the notification to Change Healthcare to contact your patients on your behalf. So be on the lookout for that.
As the compliance divas, we bring clarity and simplicity to compliance by navigating regulatory compliance to keep you on course. We missed Linda Harvey this week, but we look forward to having her next week on next week's edition. If you have any questions, please submit them to support@thecompliancedivas.com, and we will provide you with the references for this episode in the show notes. Thanks again for tuning in. We're the Compliance Divas.